Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closers Show. As always, I'm Scott Carson. Excited to be here today and extremely excited to have one of our good friends, a brother from another mother, Mr. Jay Tenenbaum, join us from the Phoenix area this morning. So good morning, Jay.
Good morning, Scott.
How's it going, man? You been staying out of trouble?
Did do my best. Absolutely.
Means you're not having enough fun, right?
I'm having a ton of fun. I enjoy Arizona.
Right. Oh, who doesn't enjoy Arizona except for the 120-degree heat? But that's why God made air conditioning. So
hasn't been that hot yet.
This is not yet. Yeah, we've hit the century mark a couple times here in Austin, but nothing too crazy for the most part. But we know it's coming, but that's okay. So Jay, for those that don't know who you are, tell everybody out there on our the Note Close Show, our listeners, a little about yourself, how you got started in the note business, why you like notes, and we'll kind of go from there.
Sure. So I was a debt collection attorney for 20 years. Like I said, I've been in debt all my life, just not personally.
You've been on the good side of the debt side, right?
The good side of the debt side. So August 13th, met up with you, took off from there, 250 notes, properties all across the country, 24 different states. Since then, it's been the ride that I'm blessed to be on, and I wake up every morning and can't wait to do it again.
Right. It is definitely when you can spring out of bed and make it to the office and you enjoy what you're doing, where every day is a little bit different. It's all the same students, same stuff over and over again, but it's different story every day. You don't know who you're going to help. Don't know the what's going to happen. It makes it easy to get out of bed. Right.
Absolutely.
So one of the great things that you being a debt collections attorney, this is basically was a very easy transition for you. You understood the power of buying debt and buying distressed debt and being able to buy it at a discount and really work out. You've got some really amazing stories of some great some bars that you really helped along the way. What would you get? What kind of advice would you give somebody who's kind of brand new or looking to start investing in notes? What kind of advice would you give them as a brand new investor?
So the advice I would give would be twofold. First of all, don't try a lot of this at home. Don't try the debt collection talking to borrowers at home. That'll just get you in trouble. And always, seek out your mentors more, and even better yet, seek out your partners that have someone with experience to run you through this. Because, I had the opportunity for people that I met at my first dummies class that had the experience. Sure, I had some experience as far as buying debt, but not with regards to buying notes and the ins and outs of even, closing on your first transactions and doing your diligence and things from there. Working it out was fairly easy. That was my background, but just the ins and outs of how to do diligence and things like that, because that's really, the good buy is on the diligence side, not how you end up resolving it. So partnering up with somebody who knows what they're doing, who will show you the ropes is absolutely essential.
Yeah, I would agree to that, because there's so many little different ins and outs, and having somebody that you can reach out to ask questions, or a good network or a mastermind group that you can reach out to on a regular basis is critical. Would you agree to that? Obviously.
For sure.
What has been your biggest aha moment over the last, golly, it's hard to believe it's been 5 years now.
I know, hasn't it? Unbelievable.
Time has flown.
Time flies, but that's just a product of when you're having this much fun. The time is no object, right? My biggest aha moment, I guess the aha moment is learning from your mistakes. Don't dwell on mistakes. You're going to stub your toe. You expect to stub your toe. Just make sure that you do it in a way that when you rip off the Band-Aid, it doesn't hurt too much, and learn from it and move forward. And also, I think what I've learned from a business standpoint, a personal standpoint, is be very aware, be very cognizant of the changing market, and be able to adapt and evolve as an investor.
Let's dive into that a little more, because the market is always constantly changing back and forth with pricing. Prices 5 years ago are different than what they are today, right? And markets have changed. How have you evolved market wise or business model wise?
So good question. So here's the thing. Obviously, being involved in notes for almost 5 years now, it's my love, my passion. Keeping borrowers in their homes has always been my mantra, right? But about a year ago, August of last year, we started kind of concurrently developing. We're still looking at notes. We're looking at buying notes. we're seeing pricing, we're dealing with the sellers, and concurrently we're developing relationships with some banks and hedge funds, mostly banks, on some REO properties. And all of a sudden, when we're realizing that we can get a REO cheaper than I get a note, and the deal flow is there, like, okay, so we started diving into it. Now, it wasn't to say that we had a ready-made model and say, okay, now we're gonna start borrowing REOs instead of notes. What are we gonna do? We knew what we wanted to do. We knew that we still wanted to create seller financing and lease options, create that passive cash flow. That's always been my model. Buying notes is creating passive cash flow. So all we've done now is bought a different asset class, a different acquisition strategy, but still done everything the same, other than I don't have the borrower to keep in the home anymore, but everything else is the same with regards to, if I had a note that turned an REO, I'm now doing the same thing now, buying an REO straight up that I was when I was taking back my REOs before.
That makes sense. Now, question for you. A lot of people hear REOs and they start thinking, oh my gosh, where are you getting your deals at? Is that an REO? You know, what kind of price point or market value are you getting these REOs roughly at as far as value and pricing?
In our specific markets, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Montgomery, Alabama, yes, I like banjos on my knees, Indianapolis, and Rockford, Illinois, on average, we've been picking this stuff up still around 50 cents on the dollar.
Okay.
Pricing from, we bought stuff around, I think the lowest we ever bought an asset was 20,000. The highest we ever bought was 106. Property values, 75 to 300.
Okay. And you're just buying those direct from a bank in a bulk packages or one-offs?
Sort of. We're seeing 8,000 properties a week all across the country. The ones we're bidding on our own markets. Sometimes we put our bids in. We do bids not accepted, they roll over. Sometimes we may get 5 bids accepted 1 week. We may get 1 bid accepted 1 week. It all kind of depends on how much we're wearing them down. And I can't say that in other markets they're going for those price points. We're not buying in Arizona because the banks aren't letting the properties go in Arizona for that price point. So, it's kind of market by market, but in our markets, that's what we're doing. So yeah, we picked up over 30 properties since August.
Nice. And so are these needing a lot of work or painting carpet? It just varies?
We've got one that we actually bought it, and I show people the before picture, and it looks like the after picture. We bought it for 70, put $3,000 into it, and sold it for 104 in 4 months. I mean, we look at the before picture, and these guys, I don't know how they lost it, because the bathrooms, the kitchens were pristine. Now there's others we've had to put more work in them, but we model that out in our pro forma as we're doing our bidding. We've got build great teams in our markets, which are essential. Our contractors are solid, our realtors are solid, and we're flexible. It's flexible as saying, okay, we don't fix and flip everything. It's a balance. We're doing a lot of seller financing. We're doing a lot of lease options. We're doing a lot of turnkey rentals.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about that, because that's basically 3 different exit strategies now, as you said. You're selling it, obviously, owner financing, lease options, and rentals. Actually, it's 4, obviously, if you think about it. So we're not going to talk about the flip side. You're just listed on the MLS, giving a realtor, and selling at retail, correct?
Yeah. In fact, our realtor, to build a good realtor base is a realtor who has an investor base and has a buyer's base. So where most of the time we already have a buyer before we finish the rehab, one way or the other. Yeah.
That's critical. So let's talk about the owner finance piece. Are there any specific regular terms that you're offering up? Is it dependent upon when people bring a down payment or how much they bring in as a down payment?
We're looking at minimum 10% down. We're around 9%, 20, 30 years, regular mortgages. We're not doing CFDs. And in our markets, we just figured that that's better. We're okay with the foreclosure rules in Ohio and Indiana and Alabama and Illinois. We're not in Cook County, thank God.
Cook County, yes.
I've got a love-hate relationship with Illinois right now. I've sold a couple of properties, and on the sales side, everybody's got their finger in the dike. It's just ridiculous. Yeah. So on the seller finance side, 10% is sufficient skin in the game. I mean, it's really a matter of your, selling properties for about $120,000. So they're coming up with $10,000, $12,000, and they do. We put them in touch with a lender right away, so they can figure out whatever challenges, whether it's the employment, history or income verification, or even, it's a lot of more of that than it is just credit these days, right? A lot of people's credit from 2008 is actually fixed, but people still have issues of, employment verification and income verification, to where, we're looking at a 2-year commitment to say, hey, you got a 20, 30-year loan, don't get me wrong. But the idea is that either A, they'll be able to refinance this out, especially when you're writing it at 9%, or you'll sell it as a performing note, because it is a mortgage, not a CFD.
Right. Now, who are you having structure those loans? You have licensed MLS officers across, or NMLA officers across the country?
We used to have a national guy. I had my national attorney in Washington and my MLO guy in Florida. My MLO guy quit because he figured he's being a real estate attorneys in real estate was more lucrative. So we're basically establishing relationships in those markets. I mean, since we're heavily in those markets, we have our guy in Montgomery, we have our guy in Rockford, we have our guy in Cincinnati. Usually it's attorneys down there.
And usually what's the fee to kind of help them underwrite that and get all that paperwork properly done?
Minimal, a couple $100, $500. It's real minimal.
That's good. That's very affordable, especially if you're getting 10% down, and then you're holding on to the loan for 12 to 24 months, and either A, working to help them get refinanced out, or B, selling it off to no buyers, correct?
Right. And I think we're using a local person here in Arizona to do the MLO qualifying. So it's really simple to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's filling out a form and just making sure some ratios work out, correct?
Exactly. And then everybody signs off, so you're Dodd-Frank compliant. Absolutely.
There you go. Loving it. What questions do you guys have for Mr. Tenenbaum as we go dive in a little bit more of that? So then you're also doing, are you doing any contract for deeds as well in different states or no?
No. Like I said, we're only in those markets for now. We just got a good connection to build a team in certain parts of Florida. I'm not sure exactly where this guy, he found me on LinkedIn, I guess. And so he's got some areas that he's excelled in. So we'll probably open up Florida pretty soon. We're really excited about our turnkey rental program. It's really easy in the markets. The Cincinnati market is just extremely hot right now. We had one property in Rockford that we put up for lease, and we got 4 applications in the first 2 hours and rented it up that first day. But on the turnkey rental side, so you lease up your properties, and then there's an online platform called Roofstock. And so, like in Cincinnati, there's no properties on Roofstock right now, and so they're gonna go off the shelf in about 15 to 30 days, and investors are buying this stuff at like a 6-7 cap. It's crazy. Wow.
So yeah, you put somebody in there in a good market rent rate and capitalize it and sell it at a 6 to 8 cap. Wow, that's pretty good, Jay.
Yeah, and not even like 6-7 months seasoning. I mean, they'll take this stuff 2-3 months in. So I mean, you get your we're starting to use some institutional financing that even within 6 months we can get in and out of stuff. It's just been crazy.
Very good. Making money hands over fist, huh?
Turning and burning.
Churn and burn there, huh? That's good stuff. So let's talk about some things. So you're finding these assets, institutional based for the most part. How are you financing? Using private money, institutional financing, got a line of credit?
Both. Not a line of, we haven't gotten the line of credit route. We haven't done the fund route yet. We're kind of spoiled. Every time we think that we want to do that kind of the fund route, we just got so much money coming at us that we're just like, we don't really need to do it yet. The line of credit route, we're just having too much fun and too much business to say, okay, let's stop and put the finances together and our income to our tax returns together. It's like, come on, I'm not ready to give my firstborn, because everybody's come out of the woodwork looking to do business. No, we were actually have a terrific relationship with a hedge fund here that started out just giving us 90% of our acquisition money. And then we're able to, people were coming to me, the investors saying, hey, I only have, $10, $15, $20,000 to play with. And for the most part, that as an investor, that's a tough area to deploy, because you don't want to be buying one small value asset, and that's just not enough diversity of risk. So with the 90% financing on a property that we're paying like maybe $70,000, $80,000 for, you were using their private capital for the gap. So your $20,000 is going into 2 or 3 properties, like $5,000 here, $7,000 here. And then that relationship's been going so well that, so then once we determined what our definitive exit was, we go out and get our JV partners to take out the acquisition side, and do the 2-year commitments for lease options and the seller finance and the turnkey rentals. Now the hedge funds come to us unilaterally and started giving us rehab money, as long as we're 70% ARV, which has now enabled us to do our fix and flips by ourselves, probably the turnkey rentals by ourselves. So we're really just kind of looking at it and go, okay, if we're going to seller finance or lease option, then we're still probably looking for some JV money. And again, we also have, if we're not going to use them, because they're certain, they're 90% certain, like in a pinch, they'll fund in 2 days. But in our price points, other guys that, to put private capital in play, somebody will do, an acquisition as a first, $70,000 as a first, and they're financing 100% of the acquisition, and then taking them out, like I said before. So
that's good, because there's enough margin in them both to be able to get somebody in, get them out relatively quickly. They make a decent return for being mezzanine financing, but still allows for you to do your work, the voodoo that you do on the back end, right?
Absolutely. Even in the second position, because we're buying stuff as cheap as we are, you're secured in second position. Like you said, your 7,000 is still around 60% of the loan to value.
Right, because you're not over, going over 70-75% of value or after repair value. There's plenty of back in there. That's good. That's phenomenal. You've had different partners over the years. And I only say this because you and I both have had those conversations before about having good partners and bad partners and stuff like that. How critical is it to really dive into, and I don't want to say interview, but double check before partnering up with somebody in business? How important is it to really kind of think things through?
Oh, it's critical. And I'll tell you, it's like, okay, so I've been married to Linda for 28 years. I think I've done the marriage thing right for now. But
you think
it's a work in progress.
We should get her on the phone and ask her that question. That would be
because of the day it is. It's a work, relationships are work in progress every day. Dwelling on the past experiences were such that, I had a partnership where the business we were compatible. We had our respective skills. The business just then outgrew that partner. The other partner just didn't come to the table with what they were supposed to. I'm blessed now that my partners, Kim and Patty here in Arizona, are just absolutely fantastic. But I think that it starts with, you can never, it's a relationship. And even though if you're dating as a relationship or you're dating as partners, it's key to understand what everybody's respective strengths and weaknesses are. And the key to a good partnership is, I'm strong here, I'm weak here, you're strong here, but weak over here. So you're all compatible. And as long as you define what the roles and responsibilities are, and you run in your own lanes, and you support each other, but you fulfill your own lane first and foremost, your partnership will be just fine.
Mm-hmm. That is something I could definitely tell you. It's important to pick somebody who's doing good at your weaknesses and sticks in their lane. That's the biggest thing.
It doesn't necessarily have to be, I was friends for 20 years. I mean, friends and family don't necessarily make the best partners. People that you don't even know make good partners. Look at Wayne and Natalie, for example, right? I don't know how much they knew each other before, but they're compatible with their respective strengths, and they do work very well together.
Well, they knew each other for a while, because I think Wayne's wife was friends with Natalie, or Natalie's husband.
That's right. That's right.
And then Wayne hired Natalie to start doing the books. Natalie, like, you're losing money here. You could save money here. And then she basically took to it like a fish in water.
Right. Right.
And Wayne was smart enough to realize, I'm not the smartest person here. Let me add her. Not saying Wayne's stupid. We're not saying it by any means, but you get the whole point. Like, I'm missing out. I should probably bring her aboard. And of course, Natalie looks over everything with a fine-tooth comb and a magnifying glass, the power of 12.
Right. Exactly.
So where do you see the market going? I know you and I are constantly reading and talking with people and trying to figure out, as much of a crystal ball as we can put together. Where do you see the business going in the next 12 to 24 months, Jay?
It has to shift. Otherwise, I mean, the note pricing has just gotten to be where, and I guess while I really only dived into real estate since I got started with you in 2013, I was, like I said, I really wasn't, other than owning my home, I really wasn't all that involved in real estate other than buying judgment liens a couple years before that. But I do hearken on what I saw, what I know from my debt collection days. What I mean by that is in the late 80s, banks started selling off their credit card debt. And I've seen the same evolution. Pricing is great. Every investors are jumping in. They're making money hand over fist. Pricing goes up. Pricing back then went up from the standpoint of hedge funds were coming into the market with use or lose it money. And they were so stupid that they were like, okay, they're buying stuff in California, debt in California at 12 to 15 cents when the liquidation rate is 8%. Do the math there. You're good, so they're in and out and done, but they created the pricing. 2008, like everything else, the debt market crashed. Everybody was able to buy again. There's a conference in Vegas every February, debt buyers. And in the early 2000s, you had 1,200 people at this conference all running around going, well, I really don't have anything to sell. I really don't have anything to buy because what I'm selling, you can't afford it and you don't want to pay for it and blah, blah, blah. Until everything crashed, the market corrected again. So pricing of notes, like I said, we've evolved into buying other things because if you got your own money, I suppose there's some deals out there. But if you're looking with investor money still, you just can't produce the returns that make sense at the pricing that is out there. And then you've got markets, Austin, Denver, San Francisco, San Jose, where Tucson, mortgage defaults are up again. So the signs are there that there's going to be a correction. And selfishly, I can't wait because it just buys what we're buying now cheaper. I guess the advice would be position yourself, get your wheels in motion so you can take advantage of, like Laurel Langmeyer says, when America's on sale, there you go. So if you're ready to pounce when the going is good, buy whatever you can. I mean, granted, when I got started this, you got started even before that, 2013, 14, 15, our mantra was, hey, buy as much as you can because you don't know when it's going to, at that point, you're kind of concerned of when the cheese was going to be moved. Now it was basically the pricing just isn't what it is. I don't necessarily think that there's a shortage of inventory. There's just a shortage of good pricing. And so I do believe that it has to correct itself because at some point enough is enough. And when it does, great, then I could take advantage of buying what I buy now even cheaper. But even if I said that, the key though is still, okay, so if I'm buying REOs and I'm just fixing flipping, then I'm setting myself up for failure when the market corrects, right? So if I've got the exit strategies of seller financing and lease options and turnkey rentals, those are things that sustain themselves in bad markets. So if it's doing well in a good market, it's only going to do better in a bad market, and that's fine. So I'm keeping myself recession-proof, as you want to call it, and just ready to take advantage of what the market gives you.
And I'm glad you brought that up because that's important. If you've got turnkey rentals, reperformers, owner finance stuff, yes, everybody flips out about the market adjusting, but it's usually it's a 2-year, 3-year thing. If you got somebody in an owner finance deal, turnkey rental stuff, that's pretty much going to stay the same. You're going to ride the wave, and yes, you may have a little bit of a down blip in one side of the business, but your other side is lifting you up and keeping you going, right?
Right, and you can't over leverage your assets either.
Right. Yeah, that's a huge thing. Don't over leverage your assets. Biggest mistake you've made in 5 years? Because we always learn more from our mistakes than we do from our wins, right?
Definitely the two previous partners. Those were the biggest mistakes I made. But as I said at the very beginning, you learn from them. You move forward. I guess really that's it. For the most part, because everything else, I guess as you make a mistake, you learn from it so quickly and move on that I don't remember what the mistake was. Obviously, knock on wood, I haven't repeated those mistakes as far as buying and workouts and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess that's really kind of what the response would be.
Now, one of the things that you've done too, we didn't really talk about this on the front end side. When you got started in the business, you bought 3 assets to begin with, right?
Yes.
Then you bumped up to 20, 21, 22, something like that.
Yeah.
And then you bought what 100 notes the next 12 months after that.
Right. We bought 29 total the first year, the first 3, and then 2 weeks later I bought 20. And I always say that those first 2 or 3 transactions, I was either moving a house or moving an office. I didn't know whether it was I was moving, so I had to buy, or I was buying, so I had to move. I really didn't know which it was, right? Yeah, so 29 assets the first year. And the thing was, at the end of it was interesting is in buying those 29 assets, at the end of the year, I had moved like 25 of them. So it was like the end of the year, it was like, okay, the end of 2014, we're sitting there going, well, gee, 2014 was a good year, but I had no pipeline. So then that's what just started on the road to, we bought 100 in 2015. And I guess kind of does into the question before is what the mistakes were. So in 2015, we did a right off the year in February, closed on a trade of like 38, and we did a trade of like 38 on the back end in November. And it was like our brand was chaos in just the, in the management of the diligence in managing those 2 big trades. And like I said, to do 100, we did 40 some assets in the a few smaller trades in the middle. And then beginning of 2016, we said, gee, this is not fun. Large trades, kind of the large trade, then nothing, little trade, the large trade. So then we kind of got on the mantra of in 2016, bought 77 assets, but it was all on a monthly basis, where it was 1, 5, I think the largest trade was probably maybe 15, but we were buying monthly. And that was, enabled with gap funding arrangements we had back then as well, which is still kind of the model of how we're using the hedge fund for our acquisition side, same kind of model still. It enabled us to be able to close on time without my daughter, my homework, kind of excuses. And that was kind of the buying frenzy. Obviously in 2017, we sat down and said, gee, we got a ton of inventory. We don't need to be stockpiling more. So that's where we started liquidating what we had. And then ramped it up again in August of last year. And then actually in March of this year took another pause with regard to just working through the REOs that we had. So right now, I think I'm managing only about 50, 60 assets.
You've just liquidated some and moved on. That's awesome, man. Yeah. I mean, I think that's where people realize as they grow in this business, big trades are great, but they take a lot of work. And anytime you get your system in place, it doesn't matter. Hey, if you're buying 50 at a time or you're buying 4 or 5 a month, still closing trades throughout the year and making things happen. Sometimes they're just a little bit more stressful than on the bigger stuff than the smaller stuff, right?
That's great. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even at 16, I mean, we started out saying, okay, we wanted to buy a specific, our bids were going in at a specific, like $250,000 a month. It didn't mean we closed on that because stuff would drop out. But that was kind of the goal, saying, okay, I have the assets in front of me. Let's make a bid. There's plenty of that. Back then, the pricing was good. The inventory was there. So we were able to cherry pick tapes and say, okay, fine, here's a couple $100,000 worth of bids, but the trade could end up being $90,000 by the time everything shipped out.
Yeah, that's one of the things that everybody has a tendency to flip out about those. They only bid what they have, not knowing that they expect. And that's the thing. People have a hard time understanding that if you bid 10 assets, you may only get 1 or 2 when you're brand new, right, Jay?
Right.
So they worry about, what if everything gets accepted? Well, if everything gets accepted, it's a good day at that point. Get out and start raising some capital. Yeah,
true. And that's even, and it's funny because we kind of ran into that when we first started bidding with our REO source. It was like we just went crazy, like we went shopping, and we're like, okay, fine. We placed like 40 bids that first week, and then they came back to us and said, well, we think you're gonna get 19. We're like, oh shit, 19? Where are we gonna find the money? We ended up only getting 1. I don't know where the signals got crossed, but then we decided that we sat down and we were just kind of like we were feeling our way through into like August, September, early September. We're buying 1 here, we're getting 1 accepted here, we're getting a couple accepted there, and we're figuring out where to fund it. All of a sudden, on a Monday, we had 2 that were closing on Friday, and 3 of us sitting in the office and we're like, where are we gonna get the money? And it was like the 3 of us said, heckle, jekyll, and speckle. We had no clue, but it was a quiet confidence. By Wednesday, we had actually 2 different separate commitments, one of them being this hedge fund. So we dated both of them and let the 2 sources do both transactions, and it's been great ever since. And then the challenge became, okay, so the hedge fund's given us 90% of acquisition, and we're gonna, let's say we end up taking down $1 million worth of property of acquisitions, where we're gonna get the other $100,000. That's where we then sprang the development of the second position program of raising the capital to do that. And what's interesting is at the end of the year, we bought, I think, 19 properties between August and December. And at the time, we were buying some of our lower value stuff, still $50,000, $70,000 properties. But I think we'd only spent like $400,000. And then I was going to a conference, a couple conferences in February, I think it was. And I knew I was going to meet lenders. I was like, hey, the hedge fund's great, but I don't want to put all my eggs in one basket. So if there's going to be lenders courting me for my business, I got to know what my numbers look like. So I knew we bought 30 properties, but I had to know what we spent, what the values were, et cetera. And believe it or not, I turned around and said, okay, looked at this stuff going, okay, I knew I'm up to 31, 32 properties. And all of a sudden, wait a second, we've spent 1.8 million and property values are like 3.6, like from $400,000 to $400,000 acquisition to $800,000 at the end of the December. All of a sudden, 1.8 by the end of the year, by March. Like, where did this all come from, right? So yeah, so we're just it's all just kind of evolved itself.
It happens. You'll look up and like, oh crap, we are buying a lot of stuff. We are funding a lot of stuff. What questions, for those that are watching out there, we got quite a few people watching. What questions do you have for Mr. J. Tenenbaum, everybody here? I want to thank those that are out there watching and liking everything. Tony, good morning to you. Good morning, Bud. Good morning, Brady Durr. Good morning, Steve Strout. One of the things, how important, I'm going to do a little self-plug here. How important was the Note Mastermind to you?
I'm Abby Normal, as you know, right? The masterminds, how they've evolved, selfishly for me, have been great. For when the masterminds were 5 days of looking at assets, that is my strong point, is sitting in front of a computer for 5 minutes, right? So as we were digging into tapes like that, that was the camaraderie, the networking, the relationships, that was all fine and good. But looking at tapes for 5 days was not my cup of tea. As it evolved into just all the the different things that you do now, has been what we had a discussion many years ago as it evolved into what it is now, was fit my liking. Because again, by quirks in the beginning, I wasn't getting any assets from the mastermind. I mean, not that we were bidding, it just stuff was it's not making being pulled or whatever. So I never bought an asset. I mean, well, barely one asset from a mastermind group. It's like, so I didn't. So I wasn't. That wasn't the arena where I was buying notes from.
Right.
So for me, everything else that you do is what is valuable to me.
The networking, the business development stuff, going through all that stuff with the vendors, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you that I've been from a SWOT analysis we did in San Antonio with Lori Davison, and her advice to me was get out there and speak more, has basically launched what has been my endeavor to get more speaking engagements. In fact, I just came from a conference here locally where I'm now a certified keynote speaker. But that's what I have a certificate.
Wow, did not know that. Congratulations, Mr. Tenenbaum. That's phenomenal.
So it's a lot of fun. I mean, working on my presentations and working on learning a lot about that end of the business. I mean, you've got it down pat, but I mean, it's really a lot of fun.
We need to talk some more then. We need to talk a little, Rob. That's. I'm glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear it. I've always been on you. Hey, man, you get some great case studies. Share the case studies. Share what you're doing, because you're doing a good job. Brady Durr asked a question this morning. He goes, "Thank you for sharing with us today. What level of rehab are you doing on REOs? Are you using a nationwide property preservation firm to do a lot of that? And can you share with us some tips to manage a rehab team long distance?"
Sure. Great question, Brady. Nice to hear from you. No, back in the day when I was taking back REOs before I got with AZP, trying to find a national preservation company, a national construction, I kissed way too many frogs. They just don't get it. It's not their pricing. They just don't get what your needs are. Our extended rehabs, I usually say that we don't move walls. We don't add bedrooms, but there was one of the very first rehabs we did. We actually changed the third bedroom back from a bar into a bedroom. But even doing that was still a 20 grand rehab job in Montgomery, Alabama. We bought a property for 50. Did the normal just cosmetic rehab. Changed the took the glass out, took the cabinets out, sealed up one wall, moved the door to another place, still for 20 grand, and seller finance for 100. So it's just the rent ready type rehab is all we're doing. We've got the markets that we're in. We've got our local crews there, established for the most part through finding the right realtor to head your team is the key. The right realtor, you're going to kiss a few frogs there too. The right realtor understands investors, wants to work with investors, have investors to move your finished product. They've got plenty of investors who say, I don't want to rehab anything, but I'll buy it once it's fixed up as a rental. They know the construction crews that they've used in the past, and they as a referrals, but they're there to manage them. Now, the hiccup there was in certain markets, we're like, okay, the realtor still has a business, not just our properties. So do they absolutely keep their thumb on our contractors to the extent that they had to? No. So we hired a guy in Ohio, local, like a project manager, and he goes around all the properties. Now, the biggest story that I will share is we all in our career have had to fire contractors. You fire a contractor because they don't show up on the job, they do shoddy work, a little bit of both, whatever. I don't think any of you out there have ever had to fire a contractor because his work was good, he was on time, he was on budget, but he's going to get arrested for kidnapping.
Okay, what happened there?
We found out about it and fired him. That's all we could do, and replaced him and moved on.
No, what's the story behind the kidnapping? Was it just a?
I think it was a custody thing.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Gotta love that. Hired for kidnapping instead of note napping, right?
Exactly. But I mean, it still goes back to, how do you do it long distance? You've got to rely on your teams. You're going to have challenges. Like I said, we had to fire a guy for kidnapping. Our first realtor in Montgomery died at the age of 34 we got off a plane in Italy. So we had to fix, had to find a new realtor. He was a broker, so we had to move some of the properties that we already bought through him from his brokerage. And the silver lining was he probably wasn't going to be our realtor long term anyway, because we found out after the fact kind of thing. But the people who took over his brokerage weren't that great. The silver lining was we had a property where we lease optioned it, and the agent who brought the lease option buyer understood lease options and seller financing so well, she's now our go-to broker in Montgomery.
That's good. That's a big thing. Don't burn any bridges. You never know who on the other side of the transaction you may want to have them working for you at some point, right? Good stuff. Laura Maxwell says, good stuff. Let's see here. What else is saying? What things we got? Gail Villanova says, great. Colin Getz says, great. Awesome. That's awesome, man. I love hearing your successes, Jay.
Thank you.
I know because you work your butt off, first and foremost. So those that don't know you know that you do enjoy what you're doing, but you do work your butt off. I'm glad to hear you're speaking more, which is good. Mm-hmm. Any conference that you would recommend to people to go to? Because you've been to a lot of different ones. You've kissed a lot of frogs at conferences too.
Right. It's conferences. I mean, Mark Gold's conference is always a lot of fun here or there.
Distressed Mortgage Expo, as we talked about.
Mortgage Expo. They're really, Noteworthy was good when you ran it, but it's gone.
You mean Noteworthy Investor Summit now is what it's called in Irvine.
Yeah, but that's actually that in a roundabout way. I was at his conference a couple years ago and met the guy that I just finished the training with recently, this weekend. That I'm the certified keynote speaker. He's real, but I met them there, and then ran into them. One of his woman at a conference at a thing that we do here. I'm involved in a really cool entrepreneurial group here in Phoenix.
Good.
He's got some amazing people in it. Not even real estate guys. I mean, just amazing people in general. So, I really haven't gone. I mean, it's almost like the note conferences in general have become sort of like the debt buyers conference I was referring to in my debt collection days. It's like with the market where it is, it's like, is that the best use of your time? Not really. I mean, I'll go anywhere that'll give me the privilege of speaking, but and that's for me, that's where I direct my attention. If I can go speak on a panel as a conference, I'll attend. If not, I'm just really busy here. In fact, I was talking to Wayne yesterday, as a matter of fact, because in the very beginning, I used to envy Wayne, and you as well, with regarding like Quest and IRA companies, strong IRA companies in your own backyard, right? That you could go and have networking events with. And in California and Arizona, we don't have those things, right? And I used to envy Wayne because I was trying to get a hold of Wayne. I'm in a meeting over here. I'm in a dinner over here. I'm blah, blah, blah. And my day is like in the morning is basically my asset management side. The first couple hours of the day, managing, the assets, making sure the borrowers are doing what they're doing, and blah, blah, and all that. And then it's like off to the races. Like I have a call at 10. I have a meeting at 11. I've got an event tonight. I mean, that's how I spend my day. And quite frankly, what I already loved about this business, I'm really loving what I'm doing now. Yeah.
That's good, man. You're looking great, dude.
Thanks.
You're not looking quite as tired as you were last time we talked.
No, it's all good. I'm getting my sleep.
That's an important thing, my friend. It's an important thing. Well, hey, Jay, I don't want to take any more of your time. I want to say thank you for coming on the Note Closure Show. It's great to have you. Jay's been a regular speaker on our note camps for the past couple of years and things like that. And Jay, how can people get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you?
My cell phone, 714-458-6317 or JAY@azpcapital.com. That's like Adam Zebra Paul Capital. I answer my cell phones. I answer my emails.
Yes, he does. So, well, hey, Jay, you got big plans for the 4th?
Going to a friend's house for a party, just kind of hanging out. My flight attendant daughter is actually here visiting, so it's good, nice to spend some time with her. I never see her, so it's all good.
Good stuff, man. Well, hey, you take care, stay out of trouble, and let's jump on the phone after the 4th and visit some more, okay?
For sure, absolutely. Thanks, Scott.
Right. Thanks, bud. Thanks for joining us.
All right, my pleasure.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Note Close Show. Like I said, look, Jay has done a tremendous job in the last 5 years, and his business has evolved multiple times, just like mine, just like everybody has. But one of the beautiful things is he's always looking at closing and taking advantage of the opportunities in the market that are presented to himself. So check him out. Like I said, drop him an email at jay@azpcapital.com. Don't be a time vampire. Don't bother him if you're not going to pull the trigger on stuff. Definitely don't do that because he will cut you off, which I'll tell him he should. But anyway, until we meet again, have a hopefully for those that are watching this, have a great 4th of July. For those that are listening to this, hopefully you had a great 4th of July. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you all at the top, everybody. And for those that are going to be in Houston, in the Houston area, a week from today, I'll be down at the Quest $1 trillion Mixer next Tuesday night at July the 10th from 6 to 9 o'clock at the Quest offices. Otherwise, we'll see you all at the top, everybody. Bye.